Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning, afternoon, or evening, depending where you're zooming into this session from, for our second workshop of the day, looking at economic and social equality as part of the Trust for Sustainable Living's Partner Power Summit, focusing on climate justice. I'm delighted to welcome our workshop leader for today, Vinisha Umashankar, who is a grade 10 student, artist, TEDx speaker, innovator, and environmentalist from Tiruvannamalai, I hope I pronounced that correctly, in India. She started her innovation journey with the solar ironing cart when she was just 12 years old, and her innovations have won national and international awards, including most recently as a finalist for the Earthshot Prize in 2021 in the clean air category. So I'm delighted to welcome Vinisha today to join us to share her thoughts on innovation and entrepreneurship. So over to you, Vinisha. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. I will now go ahead and share my screen for today's presentation. I hope it's visible and working. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Vinisha.
Okay. Thank you for having me, the Trust for Sustainable Living, and today's workshop focuses on innovation and entrepreneurship and how it ties in with economic and social equality. So just introducing myself, I'm a student innovator and TEDx speaker. However, I'm just going to go over the schedule for now. First, I'll be speaking about innovation, then we'll have a small activity, then entrepreneurship, another activity, and finally a 10-minute Q&A session. So what exactly is innovation? An innovation can be a product, service, or both that is original, new or improved, and it should be easy and safe to use. The most important part of innovation today is that it should be sustainable and affordable, because though we have several problems which are quite complex to solve, we also need to focus on the problems which are deep-rooted into our own localities, something that everybody uses and everybody can understand. This is one way of making sure that equality is present in what we do. The next process is ideation. When you come up with an idea, only then it combines into an innovation itself. But ideation is the process of coming up with an idea for a product, process, art, or trademark. And this is one of the most important processes when it comes to innovating something or starting a business. So these are two important concepts. And here I'd just like to share a little bit about my work in innovation and how I've worked on making it something that will be equal to the people who live in the locality. So what's the problem that I identified? Actually, in India, there's a lot of charcoal-based ironing. And by charcoal-based ironing, to make it a little simple, we've all seen electric iron boxes. However, in India, using charcoal to iron clothes is a normalcy. And when you use a lot of charcoal, I'm talking about 50 million kg per day, it causes a lot of respiratory diseases to those who inhale the toxic fumes. Deforestation, because charcoal is produced by chopping down and burning trees. So that was a problem in itself. And finally, air pollution caused by burning charcoal. And all of this leads to climate change. What's noteworthy here is that the people who use charcoal-based irons are mostly from the lower class, and for them getting profit or loss through their business is quite hard actually. And this ties in to where we look at our societal status and class. So this is one innovation which I'm hoping that could change that. Now let me speak about the solution strategy that I used. The first step was to do research. My research started in 2018, and over a course of 7 months, I just did a few problems of facts and problems that I had to solve to create a charcoal-free ironing system. Once I had defined the problem, I had to find alternatives which could replace charcoal. Because in context, charcoal has been used to iron clothes in India for centuries, perhaps since the Victorian era. And that's a really long time of people using it, and change isn't easy to accept. So I had to find an alternative which was not only sustainable, but also was not completely different from what the people were using before. So I thought of mobile ways to expand their customer base and even about extra income to bridge that gap in economic inequality. Finally, the third stage is to innovate the idea. I worked on a technical paper for about 6 to 7 months and finally had the idea of a solar ironing cart prototyped and patented. All it takes is a thought. So here you can see the solution, and this is how it looks. And just a brief on how it works is that there are solar panels on the top. There's a battery located in this hollow space inside the cart. And then the iron box connects directly to the solar panels, so there is no power wastage. And finally, it is a mobile unit, meaning that the ironing vendors can ride the cart around town. So it not only eliminates charcoal to iron clothes, it's an innovation that empowers small entrepreneurs. This bridges the social inequality and the economic inequality, which is really important in a developing country like India. It also reduces deforestation, the severity of climate change, air pollution, and it's also very affordable, which is one of the most important aspects of innovation which tackles inequality. I just explained a few things over here. The cart has 2 solar panels, a power transformer, controller, battery, and iron box. So the panels produce power. The transformer and controller control and convert the power. The battery stores the power for later usage, and the iron box is the main component of the whole cart. The dimensions are also quite important, depending on which kind of roads you're using it on or which area you're located in. And methods of extra income. This is also one of the most important things because as an ironing vendor, honestly, they do not earn much every day while ironing clothes, and especially considering their profit. So I've added a few GSM PCO, charging ports, and mobile recharging systems for extra income and for customers.
Vinisha, sorry, can I ask what's the GSM PCO?
Yes. So GSM PCO is similar to a landline phone. You would have it in your house, except this time it's attached on a cart. So you can use it like a payphone. You put in a few coins and then you get to make a call.
Wonderful. Thank you for explaining.
You're welcome. And finally, a common question that was asked is, how could you use the solar ironing cart on a rainy day? And the answer is quite simple, actually, because the solar panels don't rely on just direct sunlight. It also uses ambient light, meaning even if the clouds are partly covering the sun, then you can still power the ironing cart, even though it might be less efficient. Also, the battery life comes for about 7 to 8 hours, so the ironing vendors could maybe use it for 2 to 3 days without direct input at all. This brings me to our first activity. I had planned this as a group activity. However, if you prefer...
Can I just ask, you mentioned it was empty inside, so can you put like groceries in it or something like that?
Sorry?
You mentioned it was empty inside the cart. It was
Yes.
so can you put like groceries inside etc., things like that.
Yes, you
So
definitely can. You
you
can
can
store
use
your groceries, ironed clothes, unironed clothes. It acts like a storage space in general. So if you're willing to store something inside, perhaps you want to carry something around town, then it's definitely a useful space.
Thank you very much. Sorry I interrupted you.
Not a problem. It's a workshop after all. So feel free to ask questions. This brings me to my first activity. I had planned it as a group activity. However, if you prefer to do this individually, then please go ahead. You'll have 10 minutes for this activity, and the activity is to think about an innovation you'd like to see a decade from now. It could be something that you thought of when you were a child, or just generally some improvements you'd wish to see. I've given a few prompts as questions over here, and after 10 minutes, you can turn on your mics and give me a small explanation, which is under a minute or so. I do hope it's interesting to do. And now I'm just going to head over to the timer.
Would you like us in breakout rooms for this, Vinisha, or as we're a small group, should we stay where we are and have the discussion in the main space?
Yes, I think we can stay in the main space for this one.
Okay.
So I hope this works. I'll start the timer right now for 10 minutes, and I'll go back to the slide so you can see it.
Okay. Okay, so does anyone have any thoughts on an innovation that we'd like to see a decade from now, presumably something sustainability related? Any thoughts on what might help to improve the situation in the areas in which you live, perhaps Comfort or Daniel? Eva, have you got any thoughts?
I thought you would never ask. Thank you. Well, I have a lot, but there is one that I am really proud of, which is I'm an author and it's in my book. I wrote the story of this. I am planning on a structure that we never have to kill any insects or bugs. And we let nature, we let them take care of each other and help us keep the environment clean. So I think my project would be opening up praying mantis farms and having praying mantises being ordered by people, so they are like pets. There will be a lot of praying mantises and we will be all used to living with them. They will be like cats and they will be all like they will be cleaning up the house. They will be cleaning up hopefully the future wall gardens that I am dreaming in the future every house will have. And they will be, there won't be any like sprays to kill the bugs or, yeah, I was not ready to present my presentation. So I guess.
Not a problem. This is all about, thinking on the spot.
So Eva, I have something which is probably going to horrify you now, because you said about not killing insects, but I'm thinking about insects as a food source for people instead of meat and protein. Mm-hmm. So does that horrify you? The idea of possibly growing insects to eat, farming them.
Well, I think it's all about the definition of how you see life. If you think about the life cycle, and if that an animal or a living like insect is used for a purpose with the life cycle, I kind of do not name that as killing. I call that as like the service for life. But the part that I wanted to mention was like when I said killing, was to either we think we are protecting ourselves when we kill bees or wasps or any fly or spiders in our home. We are just like reacting. And I want to just almost call that a murder. That, you know, because if we were living in an indigenous community, when I see a bug or a spider or an animal, I am assuming that I would know what that animal is good for, and I would know how to connect with that insect or animal. So there should be a better word to use other than killing here, I guess, Carl. Thank you.
I think Daniel has something to add. Go on, Daniel.
Yes.
My idea was about well, it's not. I know there's already like filters for to add on cars for like the harmful gases that they emit in the air, so they can break down into less harmful gases. But my idea was so like to make them much less inexpensive and much more available to the public. So like to be like in the supermarkets, you can buy them on like super extra discounts and like I'm not sure. Sorry.
I
love
think
that
that idea
project.
could be useful sometime too.
Yeah, I love that idea. And comfort now.
Yes. So anyone else wants to share anything? We have about 4 minutes left.
Comfort, are you able to join us? I see you have your hand up.
Yeah. Thank you. I really want to see in the coming years schools using paper bags as lunch bags instead of plastic bags and bags made from other materials, because the use of plastic here is enormous, it's very huge. So, and the paper bags are also cheaper, they're more economical, and they're more friendly to the environment, eco-friendly, and they decompose much faster than plastics. So it's one of the things that I would like to see in schools in the coming years. Thank you. Sorry, also, I will also, because here in a part of our country, there's gas flaring, and it's hardly used for cooking gas. So many people here, Nigeria still imports cooking gas, so if it can be flared, it will become economical for the nation and for individuals, because it makes gas very, very expensive. Yes, they can still import some, but if we can also have some locally from here, because we have enough gas to convert to cooking gas in this place. So it's one of the innovations I would like to see in the coming years. Thank you.
I think both
Thank you.
your wishes will probably come true, hopefully. And yes, I think using more biodegradable lunch bags would be useful, and especially considering that we're trying to reduce plastic waste. So yes, hopefully that becomes a reality.
Yeah, thank you.
Great ideas. One of my ideas, I used to live in Thailand and traveled a lot around Southeast Asia, and It seemed across many of those countries that tuk-tuks or songtaos, like small vehicles that are used for public transport, are very common across all of those countries because they're very cheap, they're able to weave through the traffic, but they're all either motorbike or oil-powered, fuel-powered cars. So perhaps as many of them have roofs to protect the passengers from the sun, maybe we could look at having solar-powered tuk-tuks or transport that's going to be available to utilise the amazing sunlight that's available in Southeast Asia. But perhaps do so because they're often, used really in the town and city centres where you get a lot of pollution, where there's a lot of traffic. So perhaps converting to utilising solar power would be a much cleaner form of energy that was still cheap and affordable for local people.
Yes, I think those are great ideas. And when you mentioned the solar powered tuk-tuk, it actually reminded me of something that I just saw a few weeks ago when I attended the Green Tech Festival in Germany. And there, the company Audi had actually come up with tuk-tuks with second life batteries from their previous cars, which is electric powered. And I think they also have charging stations for it, which I think might be a good alternative to oil-powered ones. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Definitely a step in the right direction.
Definitely. So I think I shall continue with the entrepreneurship part of this workshop. So what exactly do we define as entrepreneurship? It's the ability and readiness to develop, organize, or run a business enterprise. And when you do run a business, you do run into problems. Most of them are unexpected and don't come in with a welcome, but it's part of the entrepreneurship abilities to face such problems and come up with solutions on the spot. So thinking on your feet is definitely a skill that's required in entrepreneurship. Here I'd like to just speak about marketing strategy, which I am currently learning about all of this due to my innovations, but I think it would be a good thing to say it out loud right now. The first thing is the pricing, especially when you're speaking about economic equality. Your product should have an affordable yet profitable price. So make sure that your product is available for customers to buy, but at the same time, it should be able to provide you a viable business, because if you're reducing the price too much will result in loss for the company, which in return doesn't benefit anyone. So that's something you should focus on. So it will help you gain customers and also develop your business at the same time. For innovation, based on what I've observed with the solar ironing cart, it often depends on the cost of the raw materials you'll require for its manufacturing. So that's something that could be focused on. The second part is promotion of the product. The business can be promoted in a number of ways. And nowadays, digital promotion is booming across the whole world. So promoting through social media is definitely a number one. Then flyers, business cards, networking events, and even workshops like this could get your business going, which is another good marketing strategy. And the last one is distribution. How do you get your product to reach the masses? Because many of us have amazing ideas, yet only a few of them actually make it to the market. So where does that go wrong? The thing is distributing your products. It's directly tied to how well you promote your product. So you have to make sure that any innovations or business ideas that you have are well promoted. Starting out, you just branch out locally, then progress to national and international scales. Here I'd just like to give a few background on 9 things that I think are important for a successful business, because behind the scenes I'm working on one. The first thing is to develop a business plan, because often without a plan, you plan to fail. I think that's a well-known quote. So that's something you have to focus on, creating a plan. Being frugal. With the business, you're dealing with a lot of finances, money, and different currencies included. So being frugal is one of the things you should also be mindful of. Educate yourself, because while starting a business or a startup, you're new to the field, and there are several tactics or strategies which could help you become better. So educate yourself about all of these different strategies. The fourth one is to build a strong team. While starting a business, you will often need someone as a support system. So branch out to people that you know, maybe a family member or someone who you're connected with online. With a strong team, it can be much easier and much faster to develop your business. Taking advantage of marketing tools. For me, especially, promotion has been a very important part for the solar ironing cart. Being able to speak to several people and promoting it on stage, on social media, raising awareness about the issue and why such innovations are important has been a really important part of the innovation journey. That's something you should be taking advantage of. And don't be afraid to network with people, because sometimes people could be your strongest connection for your whole journey when it comes to a business. That's the sixth point. The seventh one is to be open-minded. This is a funny picture, which I thought was a good way of putting into perspective. One person decides to use the umbrella to cover themselves from the rain while the other collects it. So when you get an opportunity, if you can, utilize it, because it could be useful for you. Quick thinking. As I mentioned earlier, when it comes to a business, you face problems or you face situations where you need to think on your feet, which is a crucial skill today. I think it's one of the most important 21st century skills, if you would like to call it. The last point is to position yourself as a leader, because when you are the one with the idea, you also need to know how to lead a team, how to encourage a team, how to make everyone understand what exactly is important about the idea and how you're going to work with it. So these are a few things I think are important, which leads us to our second activity. Did anyone have any questions on that?
No.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yep, I don't think we've got any questions, so feel free to carry on with activity 2 for us.
Okay, I had also planned this as a group activity. However, I think you can go individually for this one as well. For this, I've given 6 different fields over here, and your activity right now is you have 5 minutes or 7 minutes to just think about it instead of going on right away. But choose a company which already exists in each of these fields, and based on all the important aspects of a business I've said so far, try to understand what makes that company successful or not. So as an example, for artificial intelligence, I could say Boston Dynamics. And then in a minute, you could describe why it's a successful company and if it matches any of the things I've said earlier. Does that sound interesting?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So you have about 7 minutes for this activity to just think about it. And the last 3 minutes are for you to share what you've thought about and why you think the company is important. It could be one of your favorites, and you could go ahead with that. So feel free, I'll just set a timer here and it starts. So you have about 7 minutes to think about it right now.
I think for artificial intelligence, I would say NASA. I think that whether you consider them a business or not, but I think they're great at sort of promoting the work they do. Obviously, it's innovative stuff. You're talking about building robots and artificial intelligence that are driving around planets, collecting samples and sending back information, and sharing visuals of undiscovered places and new perspectives on alien worlds and our moon, etc. So I think the way that NASA engage by having their rocket launches live stream so that people can watch and engage, and the way that they share the imagery, the way that they utilize the astronauts that they have in the space stations that are collecting this information as well, I think really it's really great sort of marketing for what they're doing and the innovations that they're driving through our sort of human desire to want to know everything and want to know the ins and outs. So they're really playing on people's curiosity and our need to know what's beyond the next boundary. So I think the way that they utilize social media and the imagery and the news, and the way that they utilize being able to engage people by having them interact with people in the space stations, and having different messages sent backwards and forwards and sharing life on the space station, I think is a really clever way of engaging us with artificial intelligence.
I really agree with you on that. I think most of the companies across the world who are working on researching about outer space, I think all of them are quite innovative. So that's a good example for artificial intelligence. Anyone else wants to have a go at the other topics?
I have one that I have both positive and negative feelings about. I'm curious on the value of communication in social media and the freedom to express ideas in an artistic way. And I find TikTok very interesting on that area. It's a free platform. People share their own ideas, and you can see people from all over the world, from different cultures and different paths of lives and different professionalities. And the thing I like that is adding up at this time, not quite enough yet, is TikTok has kind of like a versus perspective. So if you didn't like a video, you can directly connect and say like this, I find this video because of this, and you give your excuses or definitions, ideas, and people listen to each other. Sometimes people say, well, I didn't know about that, thank you for teaching me. Or people just say, well, thank you, but I don't agree with you, and I would like to go with this. Whatever is happening, I kind of feel like ethic, and I believe like they can use some kind of like a little bit more managing of safety. Yeah, I think it's open to discussion in a way. Thank you.
I think that was a good take on TikTok, because it has been seen an uprise over the past few years. And as you said, I think it is common with all social media, because sometimes it does cross the limits. So I get where you're coming from with that. And both Carl and Daniel, I think Carl, you can go first, as you've been having your hand raised for quite a while now.
Oh, thank you, Vinisha. Okay, so I'm going to look at National Geographic magazine. Okay, most people probably know that. It has a high profile. Perhaps it's the highest profile sort of geographical magazine that people are aware of. I think they've been very good at having beautiful pictures for people to look at. So they grab the interest of the reader. It's a bit like being an armchair traveler. You open the National Geographic and you travel to some part of the world. And they also kind of follow personal stories and things like that. But I think there are also some negatives with National Geographic. They tend to they try to avoid being political, right? But I think they could be accused of, for instance, burying their head in the sand when it comes to big issues like climate change and biodiversity loss. They should be educating people more, but I guess because they're based in the US, they tend to be a little bit shy on anything to do with these big issues. They have not been leaders on sustainability. They've been very late to the party, and I think that's a big fault. Perhaps you could say that the complexities and the interconnections of sustainability challenges, again, maybe those are too complex topics for them to want to cover all the time. So I think there's room for improvement even with something as big as National Geographic.
I think I would agree with you on that, because sometimes there are companies who refrain from speaking about these issues, which are becoming more and more well-known across the world. So perhaps it'll happen soon as well. And Daniel, you had been raising your hand as well for quite a while. Would you like to go?
I actually changed my mind about my opinion. Maybe someone else can go, and then sorry.
That's okay. Does anyone else have anything to say, or we could proceed with the
what's your idea?
Well, I think for the education sector, actually, for me, being an Indian student, I've seen how the education system progresses, and this is actually not based on innovation, but generally on how the system works as a business itself. Here in India, it's mostly focused on how well you do in your academics. And with one exam, it defines exactly how your career path goes ahead. However, the government recently did introduce the National Education Policy, which I actually doesn't think changed much in how the education system has worked so far. There's been so much pressure on students to do well in these subjects that it often undermines their talents in other sectors, which I actually don't think is a problem in most European countries or America, for an instance, where other talents are often nourished and you can see the people there shining in their own way. With most of the Asian countries, I think that's a fault. And where I live, I can see it quite clearly. So I hope that changes soon. It's not exactly an idea, it's just a concept which I hope will change.
Thank you for sharing, Vinisha. I think Comfort has her hand up as well. Comfort?
Yes. So would you like to go ahead?
Okay, I want to talk about Procter & Gamble. Procter & Gamble have made a name over the years. And I see lots of their products here. They're long lasting and good. I think they've also thrived on versatility. You find out that most times before you recover for a product, probably are getting bored, there's another Procter & Gamble product along that line, and it could be better than the other one. They keep improving. But I also know there was a time they had greenwashing issues. So they have to also rise to the challenge of climate change and address climate change in its real form, and not once in a while making the public feel they are doing a lot in that area, and they're not really doing as much as they present to the public. But I think over the years, they have really tried their best. Thank you.
Thank you for your take on that. And yes, hopefully it will change soon as well, because climate change itself, it has been an issue that has been garnering a lot of attention since the pandemic, slowly across the years, but the awareness has skyrocketed, at least where I live, during the pandemic. So I hope there'll be more and more companies focusing on how to make their products more sustainable. So we're arriving at the last section of the workshop. It's 4:45 p.m. over here. So I think there's 15 minutes till 11:30. Is it 11:15?
Yes, yeah. 12:15.
Yeah. Oh, 12:15. Okay. Yeah. So just right now, I have a Q&A session. So if you have any questions for me, then please go ahead.
Wonderful. I've got a whole list of questions for you, Vinisha, but I'll open up the floor first and see if anyone else does.
I think Eva raised her hand first, so you want to go ahead?
Well, I suggest either Carl or Kirsty goes first. I'll wait.
Okay.
Oh, okay, I'll just be very quick. Vinisha, thank you for your amazing innovations and inventions. And really, if there's anything that TSL can do to help you to promote your solar ironing cart, we would very much like to help you. We work with schools in 80 countries around the world, and we think it's very, very important what you are doing. So we would very much like to continue the dialogue with you and help you if you think we could be of any help.
Thank you a lot for saying that. And yes, I will reach out to TSL if I would need any help related to the solar ironing cart. But thank you for the opportunity today, because this is one of the ways in which I can raise awareness about the issue. So I'd say this is one way of helping as well.
Daniel, would you like to go now?
Yes, right. I'd like to ask you, how do you think that we should encourage the youth to have more ideas and to have more innovation? I'm not sure how to innovations. Is that how to pronounce? Sorry.
Yes, that's how to pronounce it.
I'm really sorry.
That's okay.
About climate change and the human's impact on the environment.
Well, as a youth, I think the awareness generally on climate change has been quite high, but we're realizing more now on what we can do together as youth and how we can show to the rest of the world that even though we may be young, we can still come up with concepts, businesses, or ideas that could help reduce the impact of climate change. And I think one important thing is to encourage the concept of using science to help the planet from a young age, because science is always viewed as the subject that is hard for people to grasp or is something only for the intellectuals, but it's really not that complicated to understand. Science stems from the basics of nature, and with the solar ironing cart, it was a simple concept that I came up with when I was only maybe 12 years old. So if I can do it at that age, then anybody who wishes to help reduce climate change can do it as well. All it takes is a bit of encouragement.
Thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Vinisha. I wonder if I can ask my question, because it kind of follows on from that.
Sure, go ahead.
We've been exploring this week other themes of inequality as well. So generational equality and also gender equality came up in our early discussions during the week. So I wonder, as a young woman, how you have found society has taken your innovation and how young people that are coming up with these amazing ideas and innovations and are, really trying to do their best to help combat the climate crisis and solve inequality, how they can be taken seriously by perhaps funders, investors, and older generations.
Okay, so as a young woman, the way you phrased it, I think initially there was a bit of hesitancy, you could say. The girl is so young, and how could her idea be useful? She's only 12 years old, because at the time I came up with the idea, I was 12 years old in grade 7. And most of them only viewed it as a simple school project, not something that could actually be beneficial. At the time, there was also less awareness on climate change itself in my locality, but now that has changed, thankfully. But in the past, that was the case. So there was just, why is this child or student wasting her time on so and so project? That was the general viewing of students who are coming up with such ideas. But as you actually start to gain recognition and make your idea, you just have to make a point that you're being serious about it. And regardless of what others think of the idea at the time, now it has changed, because the solar ironing cut can actually be beneficial and it could help several people. But people have started to acknowledge that, and the more I speak about it, the more awareness is generated. I think that's the whole point. Awareness is key, because regardless of your age, once people understand the severity of the topic or the importance, they will respect the idea for that. So I think that's something that has changed for the better, and hopefully it improves much more over the years.
Great, thank you, Vinisha. Any other questions from anyone else? Or shall I continue with my list? Eva, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, actually, I have 2 questions. Vinisha, I love the tone in your voice. It's so calming, and it's like, I feel like I want to listen more. And my first question is, I know you have TSL experience. Would you share a little about your TSL experience last year? And do you have any sustainable living habits? Would you like to share with us what you do in your daily life for sustainability?
Sure. First, I'll start off with sharing my experience at TSL last year. It was actually my first time starting off with a debate team with all the members from across the whole world. And we were all just working together online and coming up with ideas. And we were also working on a presentation at the same time, because we had to create a video. It was just really interesting coming together for Zoom meetings 3 days, once in every 3 days, or once a week, just sharing ideas. And we were even connected through Slack. So it was a new experience. It was a really good one too. And I think you and Kirsty were with us on some of the meetings as well with the team. And you were also really helpful. And I think when we actually got best overall team, I was really happy that it paid off. It was a good experience, and I really enjoyed working with the team at TSL. And your next question was sustainable habits that I follow. Well, I think the most simple things, recycling, turning off lights, turning off the tap, these are the things that I do on a daily basis. However, I've recently started gardening with my grandmother, because she lives with us. So I've just been helping her around with that. Then I've started learning more about medicines made out of herbs, which is a good thing. And I think it has been really helpful as well, just incorporating the habit. And another interesting item that I came across was back in Germany again, but it was a wrap for food made out of beeswax and canvas. So instead of using aluminum foil or cling film to cover your food, you could instead use this and then wash it and reuse it again. So it's not a use and throw item, but instead you can reuse it. And I think that's quite sustainable as well.
Thank you. Kirsty.
Thank you.
She's
Thank
yours
you.
now.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you for those kind words, Vinisha. I'm really glad that you enjoyed taking part last year. It's so wonderful for us to see you in, in a different light now as a young person that's, not only taking part in essay competitions, but it's having this amazing impact on the world and sustainability.
Yes.
So thank you for coming back and sharing that with us. So I have a couple of other questions for you. So a lot of innovation that we're seeing from young people is coming out of less developed countries. So things like many of the plant-based plastics that are coming out of Southeast Asia. I've seen amazing solar lighting projects using empty water bottles across South America and Africa. And I wonder what funding opportunities are available for young people that are coming up with these amazing ideas that are really helping their communities, but are already communities that are less, socially and economically developed themselves.
For this, I would like to speak from the perspective of an Indian myself, but I am not aware about the other countries, unfortunately, but I might try and learn about that later. However, being in India, I think we have a lot of companies with incubators, and they really come forward. They look for ideas, like who are coming out with ideas. As youth, I really don't think the age matters over here, but if someone has a startup idea or an innovation that they would like to develop into a business and start funding, these companies who act as incubators, they come forward and they actually take you into the company and help you develop it further. So I think that's one thing. And also the Indian government has initiatives to conduct these competitions where the winners often get a seed fund of about 5 lakhs in Indian rupees, which I think would be a good amount to give a boost for the idea itself to become a company. So the incubators, the competitions, and I think just public funding also works in developing countries, but there's a lot more room for improvement actually.
Great, thank you for sharing. Any other questions from our audience? I have got one and a half final questions.
Okay.
Okay, I'll go ahead, and then if anyone else has got any, we can come back to them. So last year, obviously, you were a finalist of the Earthshot Prize, which was certainly in the UK a very major deal. It was set up and founded by Prince William and the Duchess of Cambridge. It got national press over here. It was a television show. There's a big awards ceremony hosted in London. So I wonder how being an Earthshot finalist has changed things for you personally, but also for your innovations and entrepreneurship as well.
Well, personally, it was quite the eye-opening experience because being an Earthshot finalist, I got invited to speak at the Glasgow Breakthroughs at COP26, and just meeting several people over there and just learning how such events were being conducted, seeing the people come up with their ideas, focusing on initiatives, and a lot of the world leaders just speaking about what their goals were to combat climate change. I think that was a good experience. And also being an Earthshot finalist, we all get teams who would work with us and our innovations. So currently behind the scenes, we're just working on bringing the solar ironing cart and manufacturing it. So that's something that we're working on. So not only has it helped me gain a better perspective of how climate change is being tackled across the world, I'm also able to bring my innovation to the market pretty soon.
Amazing, thank you. And that sort of leads to my final question. What is next for Vinisha Umashankar, innovator and entrepreneur?
What is next? That's a good question. I think for me, the solar ironing cart itself, I would focus on manufacturing it locally first, because that's something I spoke about in the presentation as well. First branching out locally, then taking it to a state, national, and perhaps international scale for countries who would also require similar facilities. I think that's something I'm hoping to work on. Hopefully I can start manufacturing next year, or at least the end of next year, which would be a really good time, since I'm also still a school student, year 11, so we're focusing on that as well. So we'll see how things go.
Keeping busy, I think, is the answer there.
Yes, keeping busy would be the two-word answer to that question.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Vinisha. Are there any other questions from any of our audience members that they want to put to Vinisha before we finish?
No question, just a comment. Thank you, Vinisha. You're amazing. Keep being amazing. Keep being amazing.
I
Yes,
have one
thank you
question.
so
I
much.
can't stop, but I see Daniel. I will let Daniel ask his question. Go ahead, Daniel.
I wanted to ask if you think that businesses like these can solve the current crisis.
I think for this, you just have to look at the climate crisis as a congregation of several problems, because climate change itself is the consequence of several smaller environmental issues. And I think if we have more ideas focusing on solving each of these issues, obviously the ideas will be promoted as a business and selling out these products which are sustainable and help combat climate change. So I think these smaller businesses focusing on ideas within their locality, I think that would help.
Thank you very much.
Kirsty, do I have time for a very quick question?
You do.
Thank you. Vinisha, you mentioned your grandma and you mentioned you are planting with her. I'm wondering, I want to ask to this young entrepreneur, Vinisha, do you feel connected to your DNA or your family history over entrepreneurship?
I'd say yes, because I only started with the solar ironing cart 2 years ago, but I've been with my family for 15 years. So most definitely I'm connected more to my family. But I also understand the severity of the issue. So I'm focusing on both for the time being.
Good luck. Thank you. Pleasure to hear you today.
Wonderful.
Thank
you, Eva, for that question. And thank you, Vinisha. I think we're going to sum up here with a comment that's come through from Comfort from our audience. So thank you so much, Vinisha, for such an amazing practical session. You are simply awesome. What a feat. Congratulations.
Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Comfort, for those words. And a huge, huge thank you for you to joining us, Vinisha. You're an absolute inspiration with so much going on for such a young student, young woman. You're studying, you've got these amazing developments, and we absolutely wish you all the best from TSL and everyone that's been participating today with your future studies and with the solar cart. We are excited to see the developments. And again, as Carl mentioned, if we can help you in any way to share your innovations and ideas with the world and inspire young people, then please absolutely do let us know. Thank you very much for joining us, Vinisha.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
Brilliant.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for your questions. Thank you so much again, Vinisha, for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure to work with you as a student debater and now as a speaker and inspiring young person at the TSL Summits. Thank you very much for coming back to join us. We absolutely wish you all the best, and do keep in contact so we can share your amazing work with other young people and continue to inspire them as you have been inspired. So thank you very much. If you're joining us, oh, you're welcome. Sorry.
Thank you.
If you're joining us on Facebook or planning to attend our next session, we're going to be switching to our webinar format. So you need to change Zoom links, and that will be beginning in about 30 minutes time as we explore how addressing economic and social inequality can combat the climate crisis. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. A huge thank you again to you, Vinisha.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. Bye. See you at the next session.
Thank you. Bye.